Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you know, my ambition is to kind of skill up in Doom and get better and better, progress those skills over time so I can take on some big and challenging megawads in the future. But I also made a commitment at the start of setting up this channel that the things I learned or the things that helped me along the way, I'm going to share them on the channel in order to kind of help other people who are going through the same processes. And this is my first one, and this whole discussion or this whole video is just about kind of getting set up with Doom, configuring stuff, what things mean, and just getting up and running so you can play things the way you want and play things in the right way. And there's enough complexity here, and I've learned enough along the way that I thought it was worth putting together a quick video for this. So I'm going to break it down into three sections. The first one is an introduction. It's just giving you some background information about Doom, the engines, source ports, WADs, and all that kind of stuff to build your understanding for what those things mean. Then I'm going to go through what I call the installation process, which is this is how I have set it up on my machine. So how I've installed everything, how I link it all together. And then I'm going to go through the playing Doom bit, which is how I configure it to run and what I do when the game is running. So any kind of hints, tips, or background knowledge, I'm going to share them all in this video. Okay, first up, I'm going to reinforce my reputation for providing ugly graphics on this channel with this little beauty here. This is the process I use roughly for kind of running Doom on my system. So I've got a Windows-based setup. I've got a Doom launcher called ZDL, and I open that up. I configure the game I want to run within ZDL. I hit the launch button, and then I play the game. So that's my kind of rough process. Lots of people do this differently. Doesn't matter if you use a launcher or not. Doesn't matter what version of a source port or things you use. Lots of the things I'll discuss here will be generic to whatever way you do it. But I will frame it all around the way that I particularly do it for myself. So with this setup, let's jump into the starting part here, which is launching Doom. As I say, I use a launcher called ZDL. There's lots of different types of launchers out there, so by all means, have a look around and choose one that best works for you. But ZDL is a nice, straightforward, compact graphical user interface to allow me to configure and launch Doom. It's a really, really nice alternative to the standard way of doing it, which is using the command line. And by no means here am I bashing the command line. I've used the command line for a very, very long time for playing Doom. I've also written batch scripts and things of that type. I've also even written my own kind of mini applications for just coordinating the different engines I want to use and WADs to load up and the whole lot. But I can't deny the fact that personally I've just found so much benefit to using a launcher up front. It just allows you to kind of very quickly link together all of the different things you're trying to do and just launch Doom. And a really nice part of it takes all the paths and things out of it. It gives you standard kind of command line stuff. It just makes it more condensed and easier to use. So my recommendation is to use a launcher, and particularly for those who have got long lists of WADs or lots of different types of source ports that you like to use, then using a launcher really starts to come into its own and starts to make life a lot easier. So for me, it's a quality of life thing, but do it the way that works for you. And I've really enjoyed using ZDL, so I'll be showing the installation process for that a little bit later on. Okay, so that's the launching step here. But once you're configuring the game, and again, this is independent of the launcher, these are things you need to do whatever way you do it. So some of the background here will be useful for everyone. First thing up is selecting a source port to use. So what is a source port? Well, back in 1997, id Software released the source code for the original Doom engine. And since then, there's been a massive hustle by the brilliant kind of Doom community to bring in and develop and build lots of different new engines based on that original code. And because that's been extended out to lots of new platforms, so moved over to Windows and DOS and things of that type, it got the term source port. Okay, so it's porting that source code over to operate on new systems. But you can see here the lineage. This is a lovely graphic from the DoomWiki on source ports, so you can go and have a look at that. But it shows all of the different generations of how those different engines have been evolved over time. You can see from the original Doom, we got some other variants here in grey. Those grey ones are no longer supported, so I wouldn't recommend that you choose any of those because they've been kind of superseded by newer versions in that same hierarchy that are preferred and are still maintained. So any of these ones in white, these are the ones you want to choose if you're going to pick a source port, and lots of very familiar names in there as well, like Crispy Doom and Chocolate Doom and PrBoom Plus and the Eternity Engine and so on and so on. So it can be a bit of a jumble. I don't think you can really get it wrong. Just choose one if you're not sure and just play it and see how it goes. But there is a really, really good video by DWARS who kind of runs through the different types of source ports and some of the benefits or features that each provides, and just provides a little bit of kind of rational thinking through it. It can be really, really helpful if you're struggling to choose a source port for you. So I'll link that in the description so you can have a look at that. I would say for me personally, I've chosen to go with PrBoom Plus. I think the particular reason for me, it's a good choice. It's just a popular modern source port. It maintains really good fidelity with the original Doom engines, which is something that I particularly enjoy. But its modern nature means that it can run big, complex maps, quite smoothly with great graphics, loads of features, and lots of configuration if that's something that you want. So I quite like the PrBoom Plus engine, so that's the one I'm using. But choose one that works well for you. And as I recommend DWARS' video as a good guide on that. Okay, so that's the source port. The next thing is the game engine to use. And this comes up as comp levels, and it is a pain. I will acknowledge that. I know it's tough, I know it's tricky, but just give it a little bit of a chance and you'll get your head around it. It's one of those things where, it can seem a little bit complicated, but the reality is the comp level parameter is a parameter you give to the source port to tell the source port what type of engine it's trying to emulate. Okay, so I'll give you the first three main engines that I think are important. Comp level 2, which is the Doom 2 engine, comp level 3, which is the ultimate Doom engine, and comp level 4, which is the final Doom engine. Now, each one of those engines is something that replicates the respective original game that was released. So if I tell PrBoom Plus, I'm setting the comp level parameter to 2, I'm saying of all the game engines that you can emulate, I want you to emulate the original release of the Doom 2 engine. And when it does that, I can play maps or WADs that were designed to be played on the Doom 2 engine. Okay. Now, I know this is frustrating, but it's really worth kind of being a little bit careful with, because if you choose the wrong comp level setting, it can have some really kind of frustrating consequences. And one of the ones that happened to me recently, for instance, is running around on a map and trying to navigate my way through the map, getting a little bit frustrated, not kind of understanding how I'm supposed to progress on the map. And what I realized eventually was that I was using the wrong comp level setting, and I was running past a trigger that should open up a wall to allow me to progress into the next section. But that trigger uses mechanics that were not implemented in the engine that I had set in the comp level setting, and it just couldn't open it. So it can be really, really frustrating if you don't use the right comp level. So please take a little bit of care in choosing the right one before you play a WAD. And I'll show you later on as I download some WADs and show you how to do that and kind of work through that process. I'll show you how I identify the right comp level setting to use. And honestly, it's not always straightforward, but there are some good guides that should help you through that. Okay, so I've mentioned comp level 2, 3, and 4. Those are all about the original Doom engines that were released. But there's two other ones that are worth mentioning as well. There's comp level 9, which is Boom, and comp level 11, which is MBF. And just think of these as, like the incredible efforts of the Doom community to create even more advanced engines than those original engines that were generated back in kind of 1993, 1994. These engines are like, modern masterpieces that allow kind of map developers or WAD developers to create ever more complex WADs for us to enjoy. And they'll have lots of hooks and new functions and features developed into them. So, map developers can create, new enemies, new types of weapons, new mechanics within, the kind of gameplay and all of those sort of things. But they extend well beyond the original engines that were there. So some of the WADs, some of the more modern designed WADs will require some of these comp level settings to be used. Okay, so that's why they're there. We've got the three ones, the originals, and we've got a couple of kind of heavy hitters for the really much more complex modern WADs. Okay, so that's comp level settings and game engines, and hopefully that's relatively clear. As I say, I'll demonstrate some of these later, so hopefully that will reinforce this thinking. And then the next thing is we've got IWADs that we need to select and PWADs that we select. And that is there's a little bit to understand around that, to understand where the logic in this is coming from. So IWADs are internal WADs and PWADs are called patched WADs. So the way I tend to, like for most scenarios I'm familiar with, I tend to download a PWAD, which is a WAD that somebody has created with some new levels in it, and I want to play that, but I have to associate it with an iWAD. And the whole rationale for this, think for instance, if I talk to you about the Doom 2 engine, for instance, then the WAD that was released with Doom 2 is the Doom 2 iWAD, and that is the internal WAD for Doom 2, and that's got all of the assets and resources and everything packed into one WAD for that that whole game. So for instance, it's got all of the maps integrated into it, it's got all of the soundtracks and things integrated into it, it's got all the graphical assets and things integrated into it, all that kind of stuff. So that's the iWAD, okay? If somebody comes along and creates a PWAD to run Doom 2, they will just add in the specific things that they are changing from that iWAD. So for instance, if somebody creates a new set of maps and they load those into a PWAD, then those maps will replace the original ones when you launch both of them in the source port together. But for all the things that aren't included in the PWAD, it will just use the equivalent information from the iWAD. Okay, so if you've got the maps, the new maps in the PWAD, when you play the game, you will have new maps when you play Doom 2, but you will have the original soundtrack and you will have all of the original graphical assets. Okay, conversely, if somebody creates a PWAD, a modern PWAD for Doom 2, that's just a replication or a different version of the soundtrack for it, and they build all that into a PWAD, and I launch that in my source port with the Doom 2 iWAD and this new music PWAD that they have provided, then when I load it up and play Doom, I will get all of the original maps and all of the original graphical assets, but the soundtrack will have changed and it'll be the new one. So the PWAD, any information that's in the PWAD takes priority, but anything that isn't included, the source port will just use the information from the original iWAD. So that's why you set an iWAD and a PWAD. Okay, so you need two WADs to run the game. Some of this, I'll give a demonstration of this to show you the effects of changing over and using different PWADs and how that works in my demonstration later on. So that'll get it a little bit clearer. But that's why there are two WADs that we typically associate when we're running a source port. Okay, and that's, you know, source ports, the game engine, and the iWADs. There's some stuff here on kind of settings that you might want to run in the configuration. I'll go through some of those later in the demo instead. But the next thing up then is just playing the game. Okay, so we've covered the introduction here. Next up is the installation process for my setup. Looking at my specific setup, this is what it looks like. In my installation process, I install a launcher, which is ZDL, but you can run this from the command line or use a different launcher if you'd like. I install my source port, which is PrBoom Plus, but again, you can install your own source port if that's what you'd like. And then I show how I download and install iWADs and PWADs and how I associate the correct comp level for those WADs. So I'll kind of just go through that installation process to show you the kind of basic steps I use to get my setup up and running so I can play Doom. Okay, so to get us started, I've created this folder called Doom, and within that folder, I'm going to put all of the software and all of the WADs and different things that I need to run my Doom setup. So I like them all co-located, but you can do this whatever way you want. They can be on different drives and different folders or whatever. But just I guess it's easier to demonstrate them as well when they're all together. So we have a launcher. So let's have a folder for that. We have got a source port, or maybe more than one source ports, and we've got our WADs that we need. So let's put the WADs in here. So we've got the launcher, the source ports, and the WADs. So let's hop into the WADs. I've got some WADs already, so I'm just going to drop them in here. These are the WADs I have. I've got two iWADs here, Doom and Doom 2. So these are the original iWADs that came with the original Doom and Doom 2 games. Obviously, again, these are the iWADs to contain all of the resources. So all of the maps, all of the music and soundtracks, all of the graphical assets and so on. So these are the iWADs we need. And I've got two PWADs that are developed by different individuals. One of the PWADs is called Moonblood. And Moonblood, we have it here. These always come with a text file giving you some background information and then the PWAD itself. And I've got a second one here, which is Memento Mori. And Memento Mori, interestingly, has got two PWADs. It's got one for the maps that were created as part of this release, and it's got a second one here for the music that was created as part of that release. So I'll go through kind of showing you how to run those in ZDL a little bit later, but let's continue with the setup process. So we've got the WADs there just to show how it works, and we've got the iWADs as well. Now we need to get our launcher and our source port. So let's hop onto the internet. I've searched for ZDL Doom, and first link here is zdoom.org. Let's just click on that. When we load this up, we see the top entry here, ZDL 3-1.1. That's the latest version. If you look at the version history down here, this is the one that's the priority one that's being maintained. So let's just open that one up. And when we click on this, it takes us into the GitHub page. And you can see here, there's a couple of ones available for different systems or to meet different needs. The one we're looking for is the Windows one, because I'm running Windows. So let's just click on that to download it. And that's our launcher that's downloading. Okay. Second thing, our source port. Typed in PrBoom plus, but you can do this for whatever source port you're using. And we've got a DoomWiki entry for PrBoom plus. So let's just load that up. And we see here, see some details. These can be useful. Scroll down, you've got the compatibility or comp level settings. So you can have a look at those if you're stuck on them. And then on external links at the bottom, we've got an external PrBoom plus page. Let's just click on that. And we've got two forks of this particular port. One is the DSDA Doom one, which I believe is used for kind of detailed kind of demo recording and demo compatibility. I quite like the UMAPINFO one, so I use that instead. Let's click on that. And again, we get into GitHub, and we can see the latest release of this was released on the 11th of February, and it's version 2.6.2. So if we click on that, we get a bit of a change log, and at the bottom, we can see here the Windows extractable that has all of the files that we need. So let's download both of those. They don't take long. So with the launcher, let's drag the launcher over and drop it into our launcher folder. And if we go in here and just extract all to bring out all the files from the zip archive. Okay, so they're all out now. And I am going to just delete the original compressed folder. We don't need that anymore. And this is ZDL in this folder. Okay, so I'm leaving it like this because we might have other launchers that we use here. So I'll just leave that for now. And then on the source port side, let's drag in PrBoom plus into our source ports, jump into this folder, extract it all. So that gets extracted in here. It's going to delete that. Okay. And that's extracted now, which is nice. And then just delete the zip archive. So it had a brackets one there because I've downloaded this before. So I just removed that. It's not needed. So that's fine. So we've got a launcher folder with our launcher in it, a source port with our source port in it. I've got the WADs there with our WADs in it. So just to briefly cover where or how you should go about getting WADs. The main archive for WADs out there is on the Doomworld website. So it's doomworld.com. And you can use the search on this on the main website. So if I type in Moonblood and hit enter, it searches the whole site, all topics, anything including Moonblood. I could filter that by file, but I know that this is coming up first. So you can see here, this is a download. So this is the file for Moonblood. So if we click on this, we can see we've got the Moonblood entry. We've got loads of information about the WAD itself, and we've got reviews at the end. I would strongly recommend anybody who's playing these WADs, please, please, please leave reviews because it's really, really useful feedback and information for teams of people who put an awful lot of effort in to create WADs for us. Okay, so this is the download link here. This is the beta website. So when you look at downloads here, you can see there's two websites here. There's one is the beta one, which we're on now, and one is the legacy one. Not everything has been moved over from legacy to beta. So if you're having any issues finding anything or downloading anything, just hop back to the legacy one. So let's hop over to the legacy website. There are a couple of interesting features, just to say really quickly with this. So at the top here, we've got a random file button. If you hit this, it just pulls out a random WAD and throws it at you, or a random map. So if you want to have loads of variety and unexpected things to play, you can play around with that, but it's a little bit of roulette in terms of the quality that you might get. There's another one here which is top rated. So if you want to find the WADs or maps that people have enjoyed most, that's a good place to go. And then just generally at the top here, there's a search button. So if I hit search and I'm interested in the title of my WAD is Moonblood, and I hit enter, and it finds the Moonblood entry here, and again got the information surrounding that WAD, and again over here we've got all of the download mirrors. Okay, so whatever ones you're looking for, have a good search on the Doomworld website. If you can't find it on the beta part of the site, just hop back into Legacy and have a look there. And another way of doing it as well, if you just hop into the DoomWiki, which is always a good way of doing it, and just type in the WAD you're interested in, so Moonblood. And when you get to here, we've seen some of these before, but at the bottom here, there's a link. And this is the Doomworld ID link. So ID Games link. So when you click that, it brings you directly back to this Legacy website where you can download it. So have a good look around. Also, the Doomworld community are a very, very helpful community. So if you're looking for WADs of particular types, or you're looking for some recommendations, have a search on that website. And if you're struggling to find things on the forum, just post an entry and ask people. So that's how you find WADs, that's how you download them. And when you get them downloaded, all I do is I just stick them into my WADs directory, and I can load them up in ZDL Doom and play them at my leisure. Okay, so that was all of our installation process. And next up, we have playing Doom. This is the last section of this video, and this playing Doom part just shows launching ZDL Doom, configuring the game, launching the game itself, playing it, and some of the in-game tips that are there. So let me just get started with that. Okay, so we're back to our Doom folder where we've got all of the different tools that we need. If we go into our launcher, and we've got ZDL executable here. Now, you can launch this from anywhere. You can create a shortcut and put it in your desktop or launch it however you want. But when you launch it, the ZDL interface will open like this. Any changes or things we put into this now, we only need to do it once and it will persist. It will remember it the next time we open it up. But anytime you get any new WADs that you want to play, you just need to add them back into the list. Okay, so we've opened this up. If we go to General Settings first, then it's very simple. We've got source ports here. You can list in all of the different source ports you want to use, like Crispy Doom or whatever it is. But for the particular one we're loading in now, it's PrBoom Plus. So in our Doom folder, source ports, PrBoom, and that version, select the executable, hit OK. That's now available to us as a resource. Okay. In our iWADs, we remember those original kind of compact resource WADs we had with the original Doom releases. If we go to add those in, we see Doom, D drive, again, Doom, WADs, and we've got Doom and Doom 2 here. Okay, so we can add both of those in, and I recognize them as the Ultimate Doom WAD and the Doom 2 WAD. Okay, so that's our general settings, all complete. I'll go back to launch configuration. So we've got a source port, we've got the iWAD we can use, and now we're going to load in these external files, which are the PWADs. So let's go to add here. We've got D drive, Doom, WADs. It's remembered the WAD location. We've got Moonblood. So if I double click on that and select Moonblood, we can add that one into our list. And then if I add the next one in, go back up and go to Memento Mori, and I can add in both the map PWAD and the music soundtrack PWAD. So we'll add all those in. So now we've got ZDL Doom completely set up and ready to be used. We've got all of the source port, iWADs, and the external files available to us. Okay, so imagine we're ready to play now, and we would like to play Moonblood. What is it we do next, and how do we need to configure it? Well, the first thing to do is to understand the configuration we need, and let's go to the DoomWiki for that. So if we go to the DoomWiki, and we go to Moonblood, and we look at the entry for that, we can see here over on the side that Moonblood is a Boom compatible port, and it requires the Doom 2 iWAD. Okay, Boom compatible Doom 2 iWAD. And if we look at what Boom compatible means, when we discussed our comp levels earlier, Boom is comp level 9. Okay, so we know to put those settings into ZDL. One other thing we can check as well is just open up the Moonblood folder, double click on the text file, and when we look at this, we get the same information. So description, Moonblood is a megawad for Doom 2, and down here we see this provides classic Doom gameplay with Boom. So it's comp level 9. Okay, so we know those are the settings we need in ZDL. So this is ZDL. We note that we need Doom 2, engine. So let's go to, the Doom 2 iWAD. So let's go to that. And again, that's got all the Doom 2 maps, music, and graphical assets. And then we need comp level 9 engine. So it's going to run PrBoom plus, but we need to tell PrBoom plus we need comp level space 9. Okay, and that tells PrBoom plus when you're emulating the engine to play this WAD, I want you to use the Boom compatible engine. Okay, and then these are the external files that are loaded in. These are the PWADs. Okay, so we don't want Memento Mori in here. That's a different WAD. So let's just double click that to cross it out. Anything that's crossed out will not be loaded when you execute this. So we've got Moonblood WAD playing on PrBoom plus source port with the Doom 2 iWAD, so all of the graphical assets and things coming from the Doom 2 iWAD, on comp level 9, so that we get the Boom compatible engine to play it, which is what the map designer has designed it for. Okay, I'm also going to put in here just full screen. So you can put in lots of different settings in here. I could also put in skill 4. You can look up all the settings here. Skill 4 means it's ultraviolence. Dash full screen means when you open up the game, open up full screen so I can play it. And then if we hit launch, when we're happy, hit launch, it will load up Moonblood. So this is Moonblood in full screen. We're on the first level UAC starport. Okay. So this is how we wanted to get it set up. If you go in here, I'm not going to go through them now, but you can go through. Take a bit of time. It's definitely worth going through all of the general options here, and you can set up the HUD, which is the heads-up display, so you can compress your ammo and health and all that into slightly different views and give you better screen, set up the screen resolution, do those sort of things. Definitely recommend you set up those. But this now is Moonblood running as expected. Okay, that was my first example. Let's go back and do another one. Okay, so here we are back in ZDL again. And we've had a great time playing Moonblood. It's been a brilliant WAD set, but we'd like to try something new. And the next one up is Memento Mori. Now, we go through the same process. How is it we want to set up Memento Mori? Okay, so again, first port of call, we go to the DoomWiki, we type in Memento Mori, and we find this entry. And when we look through it, we find that it requires, or the port is vanilla Doom, and the iWAD is Doom 2. Okay, now bear in mind this was released in 1995, so before any source ports have been completed. So the original game files and things don't include information about comp levels. But it does say the port is vanilla Doom and that the iWAD is Doom 2. Now, vanilla Doom means that it wants you to use the original game engines. Okay, so in this case, because it's a Doom 2 iWAD, we would be using the Doom 2 engine. And just to clarify that, we can click on Vanilla Doom. When we click on Vanilla Doom, we can see it opens up here, and when we look down here, as a result of the distinction between the official and fan-made engines, the name Vanilla Doom is sometimes used by fans, especially regular source port users and developers, to describe the original executables themselves. Okay, so when we go to ZDL Doom again, we know that we want to use the Doom 2 engine, but we want to use, the Doom 2 iWAD, but we also want to use the original vanilla Doom 2 engine. And when we look at our comp level settings, we know comp level 2 is the Doom 2 engine, the original Doom 2 engine. So let's go to ZDL, we'll click on Doom 2 for the iWAD, we'll go over to our comp level settings and we'll tell our source port, PrBoom plus, we want a comp level of 2 so that it runs the original, or it emulates the original Doom 2 engine as released. Now for the input files we use, we no longer want Moonblood, PWAD, so let's double click on that to remove it, and we want to load in both of the PWADs from Memento Mori. The first one covering all of the maps, and the second one covering all of the musical assets, or the soundtrack for it. And again, any information that isn't included in these that the source port needs, it will take from the original IWAD. So things like the graphical assets. So again, it's going to load it up in comp level 2, full screen, and a skill level of 4. So let's launch that and see what it looks like. Now, straight away, we're into Memento Mori, looks really good, and you can hear the distinctive soundtrack. Yeah, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. So we can hear that, it's very distinctive. When we quit this and go back to ZDL, we could remove that music WAD or replace it with something else. So if we double click, it removes it. Now, because that isn't available in this WAD here, it will recourse to taking the original soundtrack from the IWAD we've selected. So if you launch again, we can hear the original soundtrack, which is a bit creepy on Memento Mori, but that's there. We can quit again. And this is just showing you how the PWAD overwrites parts of the IWAD that it defines. Okay, so another thing we could do, we could get rid of Memento Mori WAD, those are the map designs, and just bring in the music. Now if we do that and we launch, we get the Memento Mori soundtrack, but playing with the original Doom 2 maps. So you can see our favorite here, Entryway. Okay, so I'm hoping with this that some of this has just helped clarify a little bit how to set up ZDL Doom to work. Now, again with this, even if you're not using this launcher, if you're running off a command line, you're running off a different source port, you're doing it using a different launcher, these considerations around the WAD, the IWAD, and comp level settings and things of that type, they remain the same. Okay, so I'm hoping this is useful to you. So again, with any WADs you're using, the simple process is look up the DoomWiki, find out what IWAD resources it uses, what comp level setting is used to emulate the engine in your source port that's needed for that map, and then you're good to go. And just to wrap up a final element of this, I've covered what it is you need to do if you're looking to play an external WAD. If you actually want to play the original game, just turn off all of the external files. So if I remove the Memento Mori PWADs, and I want to play the original Doom 2 as it released, then I would say we're going to use the PrBoom plus source port at comp level 2, which emulates the original release Doom 2 engine, and we're going to use the Doom 2 IWAD. Now, because there's no external file, there's no PWAD that replaces any of the information in that IWAD, so we will just get the original Doom 2 played or emulated on the original Doom 2 engine. So if we launch that, we can play this game. Now, just one quick word of warning. If I tab here, we can see we've got 27 monsters on this first level. Now, we have 27 monsters because in here I've set a parameter for skill level 4. Skill level 4 is ultra-violence. But if you typo or use the incorrect syntax on this, it's not kind enough to let you know. So if I make a mistake here, for instance, I go dash skill 4 without the space, and I launch it, it loads up, it looks right, everything seems fine. When I look here though, the monster count is no longer 27, it's 19. And the reason for that is it has not picked up my skill parameter, and it's gone to a default skill level, which is a lower level of skill, so it's got fewer monsters in it. So just be really, really careful when you're loading up any WADs or playing any games on this to make sure you double check that syntax, that it is correct. Okay, so we're at the end of the video now. Over this video, hopefully you've seen the introduction I provided, which has given some background context, background terminology, background understanding to how you set up Doom to run and the sort of information you need to know to start that process. I've then gone through my specific installation process for Doom as I run it and shown you how you download all of the different things that you need to download, how you get all of the bits of software set up and installed and so on. And then finally, I've gone through my kind of configuring and launching process. I use ZDL Doom but you know, the Doom launcher, but you can use whatever you want. They're very, very similar setup processes for it. So I've shown how you launch into that. Again, recommend highly that you go through the options menu once Doom is launched to set that up for your specific configuration. And I really, really hope this has been useful to somebody and kind of save somebody a little bit of heartache in getting their own setup up and running. Definitely really enjoyed mine. I think I've got a really nice setup. I'm really happy with how everything plays. So I've really enjoyed this. Hope you guys have too. And I'll see you in the next one.